All right, welcome to the Healing She Got Faith show. Happy Monday. We are in episode 115, and I have a very special guest. So that means we are in a Grief Beyond Death episode. We have Ronni J in the building. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm comedian Ronni J. I've been doing comedy for almost 2 years here local in the St. Louis area. I've been in different venues such as the Heavy Anchor, Helium, worked with a few, quite a few good people on this comedic journey and all of that. One of my main purposes for being here, not only to talk about myself, but to, I guess, show some transparency outside of my comedy, human transparency, because even though I am a comedian, I am human and life happens and life be lifing for me like it does for everyone else. So one of the ways life was lifing was through the death of somebody close to me. So I'm here to talk about that today as far as still the journey that I'm still going through as far as grieving, because I've talked about it very briefly with different people, but I haven't really sat down and really went into depth as far as really talking about it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about that. Like she said, life be lifing.
Yes.
And if you've been following the show, life definitely been lifing. And also, too, I think it's really dope that we got somebody who is willing to come on the show and just talk about the grief journey. Being a comedian, like I think like that was so dope when I got your information, because I think a lot of times like we downplay like the goofy friends, the goofy people. We downplay that so much, and I'm one of them. Like I remember when I told people that I was diagnosed with situational depression, they was like, "But you always laughing."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, you can't be depressed because I'm always laughing. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm definitely excited to jump into that conversation and talk about like just grieving, just still having to go to work and do that, still living out your passion, and also to like how to deal with grief. So I'm excited to hop into that conversation. So that would definitely be what we talk about in the topic of the day. But as you all know, before we get started, we'll always start with our icebreaker. So I'll catch you over there. Welcome to episode 115's Icebreaker. And so we have the Butterfly Affirmation deck by Alana Fairchild. And so I have mine. 3 fell out while I got the card, so I took that as mine. We call those free cards. So do you want me to pick it or you pick it?
I'll pick it.
Okay.
Let's see.
They sticking right out.
Yeah. Man, how many cards is?
Okay, them yours.
It's 2, so we're gonna put that right there. One of my friends who's a spiritual advisor, she'll be shuffling the cards and they just be jumping out. She be like, ooh, ooh. So I learned from her when they pop out like that, I just go ahead and take it out.
Yeah, that's literally what I did with my 3. I was like, I went to go set up the cards, and then like 3 of them just popped out. I was like, I'm gonna just take them. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So how many did you end up with?
So I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4.
Ooh, okay.
4
Let's
cards.
go ahead and jump in it. So you'll just read it, so you can read them however you feel, and then the question is, does it resonate with you? Why or why
not? Okay, let's see. I think. Okay, I'm gonna start with this one. Okay. So this one says, "My intuition is strong and clear. I trust the voice within." This is something I really had to work on, throughout the years, or whatever. I think I'd seen something where they was talking about the effect that you get when you meet somebody where you thinking that it's butterflies.
Yes.
And it turns out that sometimes that's your intuition or your gut
telling you.
yeah, telling you certain things, and sometimes we either read that stuff wrong, or sometimes the voice within, we don't want to listen because, that person just, they look so good and they look like this and look like this. So, that voice within, we telling it to shut up, like, girl, shut up.
Yes.
He cute with dreads. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to hear you right now, but
I want what I want.
Yeah. And your voice trying to tell you, like, girl, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. He got the toxic man starter package going. He gonna take you down through there. Don't do it.
Said the toxic man starter package.
Don't do it. So just really learning how to I really had to learn how to trust that voice within, and more so on a spiritual level, because we focus so much on the physical, and we get so distracted.
Yes.
And have I learned I had to understand that sometimes the bad things, or the bad things, or the bad people, not so much as bad people, but the people that aren't good for you that come into your life, they usually don't have a look of, like, they look like they bad or whatever. They be dressed up. Like I said, they might have locks or whatever you prefer.
Desire.
They tall, they smell good. They it's dressed up to look real good to distract you. So yeah, I really had to learn.
I like that one too.
To listen to that voice within.
Yeah, I like that one too. I think, like, I keep saying, like, once I turn 30, I'll be 33 this year. Once I turn 30, like, that became such a focus of mine, especially like this last year. I really feel like my intuition has really been like, okay, you need to start listening. Like, I think we're tired. Like,
listening and paying attention, because it was the same thing for me when I turned 30. I'll be 41 this year, but when I turned 30, like, it was like just something clicked in my head, like okay, you're 30 now. We have to do better, because with a lot of stuff we know better by now. We know what it is. We can't sit up and blame things on certain people, especially upbringing or parents or whatever, because it's like, by this time now, you lived your own life, what you're doing, what's out there, and what it really is. So yeah.
Ooh, that's deep. Okay. Ooh, okay. That just gave me some questions for the topic of the day. Okay, go ahead.
Let's see. Next one. Okay. This one. Today I dare to do something differently. And I've been on this a whole lot lately. And just not for today, but just for life overall.
Yeah.
I think they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. I've had a few times, just, we're only 4 months into the year. So I've had a couple of times this year where, people from the past, they resurfaced or whatever. And then, all over again, I had to stop dealing with them, go back to acting like I don't know them anymore, because one thing about it is you can't open new locks with old keys.
Ooh.
You just cannot. It doesn't work. So
that's a word.
I know a lot of things. I had to do a lot of things differently, just in life, just in dealing with people.
Yep.
Especially with dating.
Ooh, yeah.
And stuff like that. Like, I had a friend, the one that's the spiritual advisor. She was telling me, like, you really have to be careful, like, who you allow around you, and not only that, but make them earn their place in your space.
Yes.
So I've been having to do a whole lot of things differently. as far as that, and really, make people earn a place in my life, and not just giving it to
Giving
them
it to
just
them.
because they're around.
Yes. That's so powerful that you said that, because I feel like that's been one of my life lessons between like 2023 and 2024 is like people really have to earn. And like if we're talking about dating specifically, it really has been like telling men like this is what I will deal with, this is what I won't. And if
Mm-hmm.
like you can't follow like a simple, or even like as simple as like listening to like what I like for example, if I say our first couple of days, I just want to go to a coffee shop, and it's 4 weeks went by and we ain't been to
Mm.
nothing.
Yeah.
We just not meant to be. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we just not here.
Yeah.
You
Like
know.
like I had a situation like that recently, and it was like every week. He was like, yeah, I'm off on Monday and Tuesday or whatever. I would really love to take you out this and the other. Told the man where I wanted to go. Told him
Mm-hmm.
exactly where I wanted to go. And it was like every week when it came around, either it wasn't mentioned anymore, or it was some kind of excuse, or whatever. My last straw was he was supposed to come to my last show. And I actually headlined on that show. And so that was like,
Oh,
that's a big thing. In the comedy
yeah.
world, that's a big thing. And when I got there to the venue, that's when he texted me saying that he wasn't coming, whatever excuse, whatever. And I'm like, okay. So like a couple of days later, sent them a text, and it was a long text. I can't remember everything I said, but pretty much to sum it up, I told him I'm not mad,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm done.
Yeah.
I know exactly where this is going. I'm old
Yeah.
enough to know exactly where this is going. I don't feel like I'm begging somebody
Mhm.
for something. And the thing about it, ladies, if they want to do it, they
They
will.
will. Oh
Don't
my God.
They will. Like, stop torturing yourself. I wasn't about to take myself through that torture because I've done it before
For
in the past. And I'm like, I'm not doing all this unnecessary mental anguish and all
yeah.
this stuff like that. I'm like, I'm not done. I mean, I'm not mad. I'm just done. I don't want to spend my time,
Yeah.
doing this, operating in this type of space.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my gosh, ladies, if they wanted to, they would. But also, too, like, I just had a very, very similar experience to what you just experienced. And this was the first time in my dating experience that I was like, we just don't mesh. Like, and I was
mm-hmm,
okay with it. I felt like the guy wasn't okay with that, but like I was like, it ain't no beef. Like I was at
mm-hmm,
an understand point. I'm like, oh, okay, like I get it. Like you just can't give me what I want for whatever reason. The reason actually don't matter. We just not a good fit. But like we
mm-hmm.
cool, and like even to the point, like I also sent a very long text message. I know that probably irritated him, but that's just who I'm a writer, so I'm going. One thing I'm gonna do is write. Like
Yeah, yeah,
so then I'm a write, and I felt like I like said everything, and he was just like, "You just don't think I listen to you," and I was like, so I'm actually like in a really positive place. So I don't want to end this negatively because I actually like think you're a great guy. I think you're funny. I think we had a great conversation, but I also realized that we just don't mesh. Like our lifestyles don't mesh together. What we want just isn't aligned. Like I'm okay with us not being aligned. Like it ain't
mm-hmm,
no beef. But I don't feel that he felt that way. And I was like, because usually I'm like very distraught, like, oh my gosh, it didn't work out. What could
mm-hmm,
but like this time I was like, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing like when something doesn't work out, it's okay.
mm-hmm,
And like I wasn't stressed, I wasn't crying, I wasn't like texting five people like, let me tell you what this man did.
mm-hmm.
But it was like, no, like I said what I said and we good. Like
Yeah,
I wish you the best. When I see you, like it's no beef. It is what it is because we're gonna run into each other. But he was just like, you just don't think I listen to you. And I said, I don't want to end on a negative note. I just want you to know that I fully understand that we are not meant to be. And I
yeah.
am 100% okay with that. Like,
I think some people, they're not used to. I guess that they're not used to people ending things in a peaceful way. Some people are so used to, whether it's dating or whether it's friendships that go sour. People so used to when things end, they used to, people running each other through the mud and pretty
mm,
much acting like they hate each other to the point where, when you try to end it on a positive note and you tell them, I'm not mad,
yeah.
I'm just done, and they trying to find every way to like turn it negative because that's what they used to. A lot of people used to um, operating in chaos. They think it's normal.
Yeah.
To the point where they really think that it's normal. So yeah, I think that's probably what there was with him. Like mine, it wasn't like that. Like he didn't do that. He sent me like a sad face emoji with the tears or whatever. And I'm like, well, I mean,
I'm sorry, the sad emoji took me out.
I know some guys they'll send stuff like that, and then some women will fall for it or whatever, and try to wait for things to change or whatever. And I'm just looking like, well.
I'm about to say, I feel like I'm too goofy for that. I probably would laugh if I feel like I'm too goofy for that. I would be like a sad emoji face. Like
I just looked. I'm like, oh well, and I just clicked off the message because it's like that don't work on me anymore. Now I ain't gonna say it probably would have. It would have worked on me in my 20s.
Yeah.
And probably in my 30s too, but
yeah.
that's not working with me. Like you're not sad.
Yeah.
You're really not.
You're right. You're right. You're right. You're
not sad. The way you run around here talking about bad bees this and bad bees there, baddies, and all this stuff like that. You ain't sad.
You'll be
like,
okay.
Come on now.
That's been my biggest thing telling people now. You'll be okay. You'll be
fine. You be strong it's in fine. The Lord.
It's fine. You're great. They get so mad at me too. They're like, you're so nonchalant. I'm like, you're fine. You're great. It is what it is. Like, you're great.
Yeah. Like you'll be fine. I mean, you was functioning, before I came along. You'll be all right.
I think you're right though. Like I feel like people are so used to the negativity. Like people don't know how to operate in healing. And I don't know if this is like you like finding yourself. And I just say that because for me, like being able to like constantly be in a healing journey and like really figuring out who I am. I'm no longer like that dramatic person who is very emotional or has to be in chaos. Like in that particular situation, I felt like I was experiencing being 19 years old again, which is another reason why I was like, I don't want to operate like that. Like, I don't want to feel it. And we were in the very early stages of dating, and I just felt like it was very 19-year-old-ish, and I just was not feeling it. Like, I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm dating my first boyfriend again. Like, I didn't want to feel that way. I was like, no. Like, like, there wasn't any real words. But I also feel like people are used to, like, and I've had men say that to me, like, well, I'm used to women cussing me out.
Yeah, I've had that too. Had somebody was like, dang, you just so nice. I'm just waiting for you to curse me out. And I'm like, what? I'm like, is this a fetish type of thing? Because I know, some people have fetishes like that. I'm like, no, I'm not. Unless you make me mad, but I'm not looking to, like, having to have verbal altercations with people. Like, I don't like operating like that in relationships. I don't.
Yeah, same. It don't have to be that way, and I think I've gotten to that point. Like nothing has to be ugly. Like it really doesn't. We can have mature conversation, but also too, if we're not in the space we have the conversation, it's okay to say, hey, I'm not in this space. We're just not gonna talk about it right now. And I'm okay with that too. But one thing, like I don't like the name calling, I don't like the cussing now, I don't like the getting loud, I don't like that anymore. It disturbs me too much, and I just don't. I can't stand the nonchalantness. Like I can't stand the it is what it is. Just stop. That will make me go nuts. Yeah. Like, and I don't want to be in that space.
Yeah. Like I was telling the guy, like I don't even like, not only for a guy to curse at me, but I don't even like for a guy to yell at me. And I was like, I guess that's the daddy's girl in me. Yeah. That I don't like for men to yell at me. I remember one time, I think I was like 23, and I felt like my father was yelling at me. And I cried. And he was like, no, it's okay. I'm not mad. Aww. At 23. And 9 times out of 10, he probably wasn't yelling at me, but it just felt like it. So I'm like, no, I don't want no man yelling at me.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm a punk. I don't want nobody yelling at me. I hate when people's like voices go like one octave, I'd be like, don't do it. Like, please don't do it.
Like, quit yelling at
yeah,
me.
like, there might be some childhood issues that I probably need to revisit in therapy, but please don't yell. Please don't yell. I'd be like, let's just have a civil conversation because I'm such a crier. And that's one thing about me. Like, I tell people all the time, one thing I'm going to do is cry. Like, I'm such a crier. And it might be annoying to some people, but I've got to put with it. That's just who I am. I'm the person in your life that I'm just going to cry. It don't matter if we watching a movie, might be having a good conversation. It don't matter if I'm actually sad. I'm just gonna cry. Like, and I'm okay with that. And I have to tell people, like, if I start crying, I'm comfortable with it. I know I've noticed most of the people around me, they get uncomfortable, but I'll be comfortable with it and I'll be fine. Give me some tissue. I'll crack a joke in like 2 minutes. Just give me my time.
Yeah.
Like,
I think some people are comfortable with it because I used to be like that around people that cried, and I had to learn how to deal with that. I know with me, it comes from when growing up or whatever. My mama, she was she was tough on us, and like really couldn't be crying about any and everything in front of her. And so like I grew up to the point where a lot of times, especially except for like if I was around somebody that's really close to me, I wouldn't cry or whatever. Or if somebody cried around me for whatever reason, I'd just be looking like, okay, what should I do? And then at the same time, it's like, okay, what should I say? Should I say anything? But it's like at the same time, you kind of pulled on like if you should say anything, or if you should do anything. Because some people, when they cry, they don't want you to touch them.
I'm that person
Or
too.
some people, or some instances, you just don't know what to say because you don't want to say the wrong thing, especially depending on what the person is crying about or whatever. Like I never like set up and just looked at the person crying like, what the hell she crying? What is wrong with her? But at the same time, like for a long time, it just felt weird to be around people when they were crying because like, what should I do?
Yeah, I feel like that's how a lot of people are. I'm definitely the person, like, when I'm crying, I don't like to be touched, but that's a general thing for me. Like, unless we're like hugging or we cool, like I really don't like to be touched at all. And so if I'm crying and you try to like rub my back, I'm like, ugh, don't do that. Like, like I'm there, I'm like, ooh, just let me cry in peace. Like, it's very rare that I've let people like console me while I'm crying. But like if someone's like, oh, like, can I just give you a hug? I'm like, sure. Like, but yeah, I think that was just something I had to learn. I came from a house, like, my parents were great, and we'll definitely talk about that in the topic of the day, but they weren't like really emotionally available. And so like I can remember like my mom crying and like someone going to like rub her back and she's like, I'm fine, like, don't touch me. And then like I remember my dad being open to crying, but like he was only open in front of certain people. And so like,
yeah, that's how.
Yeah, and I just remember that. But also too, I just remember my parents being like so tough, like to the point where, like, when they were vulnerable, I was like, oh, this is like, to me, it was exciting for me because I was the emotional child, and I was like, oh my gosh, they do what I do, like,
yeah.
But to other people, they were like, oh my gosh, the tough people are now like vulnerable, and so I learned a lot in experiencing both of them and their journey to like vulnerability.
Yeah.
So we can unpack a lot of that. My parents. So what about your last two cards? Did they resonate with you?
Let's see. I have confidence in myself. I am ready for everything that life offers me. And the last one, I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with the trusting the voice within. Because it says, I trust myself. I am wise. I am brave.
Oh, yeah. That was some good affirmations.
Yeah.
Some real good affirmations.
So Yeah, I have confidence in myself. I am ready for everything that life has to offer me.
I
So
like that
so it
one.
really resonates with me now. Now, some years ago, if I would have read this, I wouldn't have been
Yeah.
really sure about this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been sure about it. But I know I just I had to go on a journey in life throughout the years to get to this, because
Yeah.
I haven't always been there.
Ooh, yeah. That's real. That's real. We gonna come back to that because that's a real place to be, and like seeing who you were and who you are now. Like even being able to say like if I would have heard this a couple years ago,
Yeah, like if I would have, I'm thinking back to, oh, what year was that? 2000, 2014, about 2014, 2015. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have been there. That was a time in my life when my marriage fell apart.
mm,
Had a new baby. Um, I was technically homeless
mm,
because I had to move out of my house, had to
yeah,
move in with family, me and my children. Like
yeah,
literally a couple of months after having a baby. Because at the time when I moved out of my house, um, was having money problems because my husband at the time he left while I was pregnant, never looked back.
wow, yeah,
So it was a lot of stuff on me, a lot of anxiety on top of dealing
oof,
with a pregnancy, and then it was to the point where my gas got cut off. The electricity wasn't too
yeah,
far behind. I couldn't get any government assistance because for some reason they thought that I just made so much
much
money,
money.
which I'm still looking for this money that they think I'm making,
Okay,
because the math ain't mathing.
listen,
But pretty much at that time, having to make the decision on, okay, am I going to pay the rent? Am I going to catch up on these bills? Am I going to get groceries? Am I going to do this, do
yeah,
that? So the decision had to be made to move,
mm-hmm,
and all that. And even though I was like knowing that I had to do that at that particular time,
mm,
but it was like it caused a lot of mental anguish
yeah,
um, at that time, because I was still having to work. I really couldn't pay attention to my mental health like I needed to.
right.
I had postpartum depression really
I
bad
was just gonna say that
after
postpartum,
my second child, on top of already having anxiety,
yeah.
on top of all that, like, and I was dealing with separation anxiety too
Ooh, I can
after
imagine.
having my son, because at that time I was working overnight,
Yeah.
and so my baby was having to be with somebody else. So I was getting to work. At the time I was a janitor, getting to work, going in the janitor's closet. I just sat in the closet and just cried for 45 minutes every
Okay.
night before I started before I started working. And I remember at the time, like just sitting up thinking, because somebody was like, well, why don't you go back to school, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? And at that time, at the age of 31, I was like really thinking that it was just too late to
Mm-hmm.
try to do anything. Like, here it is, um, I'm a mother, single mother, going through divorce and all
Mm-hmm.
sorts of stuff like that. Like, it's really too late for me to do anything like that. It's really what I thought back then.
Yeah.
I was not here
You couldn't have
back
been.
then
You couldn't have
at
been.
all.
So much happening.
Yeah, like
So
a lot of
much.
work had to be done. A
Yeah.
lot of work, and I be telling people, like, when it comes to the healing journey and all of that, it's not a microwave thing. It's not
Mm-mm.
overnight. You know what I'm saying? It's this getting here was years
Of work.
of work,
Of work.
years, and it wasn't always pretty either. That's the thing. People think that the healing journey is going to be pretty and just
La la
blissful,
la
and
la
you just
la.
running through the
Yeah.
fields of flowers and stuff. And no, it's not.
It takes a lot of violence to be that healed. takes a lot of violence within ourselves. And I think like people don't understand that. Like when you have to sit in agonizing pain, like you said, you went to your janitor's closet before starting your shift and crying for 45 minutes. You know how much that takes to do versus just pushing through. Like, well, you know it, but like just like for the listeners, like that takes a lot to like make the executive decision to sit with yourself. And sit in that, like, I'm in the situation, I don't know how I got here. And then the worst part about your situation is you couldn't control none of that. There was nothing you could control. You didn't, you know, a lot of us, we suffer with like from the actions that other people do to us, and we are like, oh, I should have been smarter, I should have did this. We can't control what those folks do to us.
And that's the thing. And I'm still learning that now. To give myself grace, because in that situation, especially in that situation, I was really hard on myself. I was not kind to myself at all. I was very hard on myself because I felt defeated. I felt like I failed my children tremendously. I remember because we were staying with my cousin, and I remember that Christmas they was putting up the Christmas tree and all that stuff like that. And I remember I had to leave the house.
Yeah.
Because I was ready to cry.
Yeah.
Because that was my first Christmas, like not in my own space and all that, and I'm just looking like, this is not how this is. It's supposed to be. I was real hard on myself. I started drinking more.
Yeah.
Throughout that time, and when I tell people, because a lot of people, especially in the comedy community and all this stuff like that, they know that I don't drink, but they don't know as far as the why.
Yeah.
The why I don't drink. My drinking picked up a whole lot during that time. Before then, I was like more so of a occasional social drinker, and then with me losing my job and, losing my home and all that stuff like that, it went from social to, okay, every Friday, go get this bottle.
Yep.
And then it went from every Friday to, whatever little thing might be going on in the evening, where it was like $2 Tuesday or something like that. Then it went to, doing shots on break at work. It
progressed.
Got to be more and more and more. And then October 22nd, 2021, when I left my last relationship, like I'll never forget, I had like a half a bottle of Douce. And we all know how much Douce costs.
Yes.
I poured out the rest of that bottle of Douce because it was like at that point, I was done. I'm like, now, for somebody to pour out Douce, they really have to be done. Be done with it. But I was done with it. I was tired of the self-medicating, and every time something happened in life, this is what I'm doing, then I'm doing this, and then when it's all over, I don't feel no better. I'm actually feeling worse.
Yes.
So it's like defeating the whole purpose. So I quit that. I quit that on my own. In closer to the end of 2021. But again, people hear that or whatever, and they think that when people stop using certain substances or whatever, that it's an easy journey, and that is not. Especially in the beginning, because probably a week or so after I decided to stop drinking, that's when I got the news as far as my father getting diagnosed with cancer. So it was like, that was not an easy journey, especially in the beginning.
You had to make the executive decision not to do it. Like that's something, like I don't keep liquor in my house. So I don't keep liquor, I don't keep ice cream. And people always laugh at me when I say those two things. And partly because like ice cream was a coping mechanism for me, and I gained a lot of weight. Also too, like just growing up, we always kept ice cream in the house, and now that I'm older, like it was definitely a coping mechanism, and it's not the most healthy. It's not saying ice cream is bad, but like we were going through like half a gallons of ice cream, like within days, like ridiculous. So I don't keep ice cream in the house no more, and I don't keep liquor in the house no more because of that exact reason. Like I'll socially drink, and like we're in my community building, and I do have like wine and stuff over here, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
bring liquor over here, but like I don't live here, so I'm not like tempted
Yeah.
to like go and do it. But like I refuse to keep it in my house because of that reason too. Like I was just tired of with either alcohol or ice cream. I feel worse afterwards. Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
feeling better. Like that little 5 minutes of fun is literally all it is. Because next thing I'm either like on the toilet in both in both situations, but then
Mm-hmm.
also too like it started to affect like my body, how I looked at my body. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gaining all this weight. I can't fit my clothes. I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you have to make the executive decision that like this is hurting me. It's no longer helping me. It's no longer fun. And like
Mm-hmm.
I have to make the executive decision to do something else and find
Yeah.
another way to deal with the pain that I'm dealing with.
Yeah. And I mean, it was definitely hard at that time, made that decision that I didn't want that to be a part of my life
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And then I get that bit of news where, most people, we're so used to when it comes to alcohol, using drinking alcohol for different things, oh, I had a hard day at work, okay, I need a drink.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have this, I want to celebrate, okay, let's go for drinks, drinking for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, their journey, especially in the beginning, was not an easy one, because some of it they don't talk about, as far as like when you decide to quit whatever kind of
Mm-hmm.
substance abuse, or whatever. They don't talk about how, like, I didn't have any withdrawals, but I did deal with some depression
Yeah.
after that, because it was like now I'm having to deal with reality in a different way that I haven't had to deal with
Yeah.
in a very long time. I'm actually having to feel whatever feelings
Yeah.
or emotions, without, being able to numb it with alcohol like I
Yeah.
like I usually did. Like I went through a deep depression,
Mm-hmm.
after that, especially with everything that went on after that. And another thing that some people don't know too is sometimes, when people decide to give up different substances, sometimes when you put down one addiction,
You
you
pick
pick
up.
up another. So when I gave up alcohol and I was trying to keep from going back to drinking, my eating picked up a whole lot
Yeah.
after that, especially with the passing of my father, door dashing and just eating
Yeah.
everything. I was barely leaving home. So of course I put on some weight,
Yep.
because I'm just, I'm sitting there, in front of the TV, and I'm just eating.
Yep. Yep.
So that's something that a lot of people don't know either. So
Yeah.
this is not easy.
It ain't easy. It's definitely an executive decision that, and a very intentional decision that you have to
Hmm.
make for yourself. Like, and if nobody has ever been through that, or if like they've been through it, but obviously our journeys look different, it's very hard to understand. Like when my mom died, I gained over 150 pounds. Like it, and I feel like it happened overnight. I know that's not possible, but I
Hmm.
feel that it happened overnight. Like I feel like she
Hmm.
died, and I feel like I blew up like a balloon. Like, and I think like when we talk about grief, people don't understand the different effects. Like grief isn't just like laying in bed crying, but it
Hmm.
is the eating habits, it's the not leaving the house, it's, and our
Hmm.
grief symptoms are very similar to depression symptoms, and we, there's a such thing as like grief depression, right?
Yeah.
And so we tend to like just think, oh, she's just grieving really bad, she'll be okay. And
Hmm.
the whole time like we're suffering,
Yeah.
like suffering.
I mean, it's like, of course, you're still going on with life and, doing the stuff that you
Hmm.
have to do, but they don't mean that the person isn't,
Yeah.
isn't hurt inside.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that I did, after my father passed away, like I had locks,
Yeah.
like, long locks, about, I guess, about the length of these braids. And I remember I remember having a meltdown, and I just went in the bathroom and just cut them off.
Woo!
And I remember when I cut them locks off, um, I remember, looking at them, and I cried. Didn't know why I was crying. Like
Right.
like I mean, of course, my father died or whatever, but it was like at the same time, it was like cut the locks off, and it was like I was crying even more, and I'm,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so crazy because when I posted on social media, about cutting my hair, I posted a picture or whatever. A lot of people were shocked. A lot of people had a lot of different things to say and all that. Even though I posted about my father passing away. And even after then, like I mentioned, missing my locks or whatever, then had some people talking about, well, you never should have cut them off and this
Oh
and
my
that and the other.
God.
And I'm like, well, excuse me.
For grieving. Sorry.
But I just happened to have just a little meltdown, after somebody died, and I just, did something compulsive.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And my thing about it is, I think I posted about this last year because I'm like, now y'all was on here so worried about me cutting off hair and all this little stuff like that when you should have been asking if I was okay.
When you should have been asking if I was okay, like heavy on that. Like you over here judging and thinking somebody doing too much whole time, person losing their whole mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like losing their whole mind. And I think like that's a lot of things dealing with grief. Like people be like, well, I don't know how to deal with it. Just ask if they okay. I tell this story all the time. When my mom died and I missed out on school and work because I was in my grad school program when she died. I missed out on school and work for 3 months. That's a lot
Yeah.
for both to miss. The day I went back, it was like in December. She died in October. And the only reason why I went back in December was because I just needed to transition my students out for winter break. And then I had like a final exam. So that was the only reason why I went back. And then for both, it was going to be winter break. And then I would, go back in January. So I went back in December to do that. And one of my friends, I remember him like calling me like, "Hey, are you at your office? Or are you at a school?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm at my office." My office was at Forest Park at the time. They had just built a Chick-fil-A on Hampton Avenue. This man left his job for lunch, went to Chick-fil-A, came up to my job and was like, "I know you don't really know what you need, but I know you like lemonade." And he brought me the biggest cup of lemonade. It was like, I know you like lemonade. And so I hear, because I know it's your first day back. And I bawled because that was just the sweetest gesture
Yeah.
that I felt like anybody could have done. It was like my first day back at work. I was in a daze. And like he didn't know what to do. And you could tell, like, he was like, I know if I ask you, you're going to say, I don't know. But I also know, like, I kind of know what you like to eat and drink, but I know you really like this lemonade. And so, like, if anything, I hope this, like, makes your day, even if it's just for the lunch hour. And I cried because I was like, oh my gosh, like, there was no judgment. There was no, like, expectation. It was just, and even for him, like, he wasn't scared to just be like, I really don't know what to do, but I know you like this. And to me, like, sometimes that's the best thing you can do. Like, sometimes you don't know because we change with grief. Like, a lot of us try to go back to who we used to be before we grieved whatever we grieved, and we'll never be that person again because there's a piece of us that's missing. So now we have to relearn ourselves from this point forward and accept that person just doesn't exist anymore. We can miss them because that's another thing with grief. We're not just grieving the physical death that we lost, but we're also grieving who we used to be.
Yeah.
So you get a double whammy, and people don't think about that when it comes to grief.
Yeah, because I definitely after my father died, I had to, because for the longest after he died, I didn't feel like myself.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like myself at all.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know when I started comedy, I was still grieving the loss of my father because my father he passed away at the end of 2021, and I started comedy July of 2022.
Okay.
And so I was still grieving. You know how it is, like within that first year, you're experiencing the first birthday without that person, the first holidays, the first Mother's Day or Father's Day or whatever, without that person being there. So like a lot of people didn't know that, like, during the holidays, especially around Christmas, when I was off of work for Christmas, and I wasn't really because my first year of comedy, I was hitting the open mics hard, like I was summer everywhere, and then my Christmas break came around where I really could have been outside,
Yeah.
like that, to the point where I wouldn't be tired at work like I was or anything like that. But during that time, I didn't really go to any open mics or anything like that. I wasn't really, leaving my apartment. Like I wasn't in the mood for the holidays. This past year was the first time that I was able to actually be in the mood for it.
Yeah, yeah. For real. Yeah, that's real. That's real. And if you look at that timeline, like, people don't realize that's a big timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's real.
Yeah. But yeah, that I felt like I lost a lot of myself.
Absolutely.
When he passed away or whatever, and trying to get that back, but at the same time having to deal with the fact that you could try to get it back, but it's not really going to be the same.
Yeah, and having to move forward and giving yourself
and,
grace.
and accept that.
Yeah.
Too.
Ooh, okay. Ooh. Ooh. I love talking about grief. I love it. I know people be like, that's crazy, but I love talking about grief because it's something that's not talked about. And so, like,
Yeah.
we're still technically in the icebreaker, so I'm gonna finish these cards. But, like, you gave so many gems for the topic of the day that I'm ready. Okay, so I got 3 cards. We'll finish this and then we'll go ahead and hop into the topic of the day. So I have 3 cards. Even when things aren't perfect or don't seem to be working out, I choose to trust in life. I think this is similar to your confidence card. I think I just now got to this point. If you would have said this probably even 2 years ago, I probably would have been like, yeah, whatever.
I think,
Shut up.
wait a minute, let me read that again. Even when things aren't perfect, or it definitely goes with that, because this goes with saying, because like I said back then, I remember feeling like it was too late.
Yeah.
It was too late for a lot of things, and it's hard when certain things happen. Like I remember, like back then, and we're still friends now. I have a friend that I used to work with at SLU. We've been friends since 2011. And I remember when I was going through that stuff, he's like, "Girl, you gonna be all right.
Yeah.
You gonna see you gonna be all right." But at that time, with everything that was going on, I couldn't see it.
Yeah. And the next card is everything's gonna be okay. Look, I swear everything gonna be okay.
And like me and him be talking all the time, because my youngest boy, he's about to be 10, and sometimes I just have to mention, like, God, this child is about to be 10, and then I get to thinking back to that time in my life, and how much time has passed, and I tell him all the time, like, yeah, I remember back then you kept on telling me, girl, you're gonna be all right, come on, we gotta pull it together, it's gonna be all right. And at that time, I really couldn't see it, with everything that was going on. During that time too, I had to go to DePaul for my anxiety, because my anxiety was getting really bad at the time.
What's it called? The mental health.
Yeah.
I forgot what it's called. I'm blanking, but it's DePaul Hospital, but they have like a whole mental health organization.
Yeah, I had to do like what they call partial hospitalization. For my anxiety, because at first when they said that I needed to do that, I was still working at SLU, having a new baby and all this stuff like that. So I'm like, God, when am I going to have time
to do that, to even invest in that,
to do this? Yeah. And so I ended up losing my job, and ended up being able to take the time to do that. So, like, me losing my job, that was a blessing in disguise, because like I was declining so bad as far as my mental health, to the point where, like, I was feeling like I didn't want to be here anymore. Because I remember Like recently, one of my Facebook friends, he was posting about a bus that he would have been on that got shot up.
One of my, I think I know what you're talking about. One of my childhood friends was one of the ones that got killed.
Yeah, he was posting about that, and he was like, yeah, I ended up having to stay over at work or whatever, and I was supposed to be on that bus, and he literally said, I'm mad that I wasn't on that bus.
Yeah.
And I reached out to him. He never did respond back because I understand.
Yeah.
Being in that space. I remember after I had my youngest son, I almost died. And I remember feeling very conflicted after that happened because, so much that happened after he was born, as far as like losing my home and having to deal with my mental health and all sorts of stuff like that, and still having to function in life and, just constantly fighting with God, like God, why didn't you take me at the hospital?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Why would you leave me here for that? So like I understood.
Yeah.
I understood what he was feeling because I've been there, and I know some people would say that that's horrible, but it's a lot of people out here feeling feeling stuff like that, especially if they dealt with mental health issues and stuff like that. Because I had a time in my life, even when I was younger, so much going on with me mentally to the point where I wasn't even seeing myself being past the age of 21.
Yeah.
And sometimes I look back, I look at what I'm doing now, as far as like hitting the stage and doing different things, and sometimes I tear up about that because thinking back to when I was questioning God, and I was like, God, why would you keep me here for this? And then like with what I'm doing now, I'm starting to understand and see the purpose of why he kept me here. But it was just one of those things at the time, I just didn't see it.
Yeah. I want to say thank you for sharing that, and thank you for your vulnerability, because I do think like we have more people who will say like, "Oh, that's a selfish feeling. Oh, you shouldn't feel that way. You should be grateful." But I think a lot about, and we just don't talk a lot about it in society, is like there's a such thing as positivity gaslighting.
Yeah.
And the real thing is like what you're describing as a very real and valid feeling. Life is hard, and like not to get too deep into it, but like capitalism is a real thing that is stealing from us in life every single day. Also too, life is hard, and so it's okay if like some days you're like, I don't even know why I'm here, I don't want to be here. I struggled probably like in 2020. I didn't have like suicide ideation, but I had this thought process, and there is a term for it and I can't think of the term right now, but I had read an article, and it's basically where you don't have a plan, you don't really have the suicide ideation, but it's like how I was feeling was like, God, I have my paperwork in place. If I don't wake up tomorrow, I don't think I'll be too mad in heaven. Like, and like having to go to therapy and saying that to my therapist too, like, hey, like I'm just having these thoughts of I wouldn't be too mad if I don't wake up tomorrow. Like, I don't even gonna cuss God out in heaven. But I just, if I leave a note that says, hey, just make sure my dogs are okay, just make sure the building is taken care of, just make sure this, just make sure that, and I have my affairs in order, but I don't necessarily have a plan. I just don't want to wake back up tomorrow morning. And I think like everybody can't hear that. And there's people in my life who are going to hear this episode and be like, I had no idea you ever had those feelings. And part of that is because people don't understand that rawness of there are some things that just get too hard for us to deal with. And not to say that in that season I was going to go and do anything to myself, but there was a constant thought of, I really don't want to wake up. Like, I really just don't. And, they say, be careful with your words, be careful of what you say. And I do believe that, but also too in that season, that's how I felt. That's where I was.
Mhm.
I'm not there now. And like you said, I see why I'm here. I see why, like,
Mhm.
there is purpose in the pain, but while you're going through it, there is a very real reality. And that's part of the reason why I created Healing She Got Faith, to have these safe spaces to talk about stuff like that.
Mhm.
Because too many times, because I be telling people all the time, y'all be too perfect for me, honey.
Yeah.
Y'all don't got no emotions. Y'all just go happy go lucky. Y'all just too tough.
Mhm.
Y'all too tough for me. I can't afford to be that strong no more, because I watched it kill my parents. I watched it hurt the very people that I love. I watched people turn into these evil, I hate
Mhm.
to say it, demons, because
Yeah.
they refuse to allow themselves to be emotional. There are people in my life that I have loved, but because they refuse to give themselves permission to have these emotions, they turned into just horrible people. And
Mhm.
now I had to separate myself because I can't be around that.
Yeah.
Because I care too much about myself. I care too much about my emotions. I care about the people I'm around. I care, like, in this whole process, I care about creating a safe space for you to be able to speak your truth and speak your story, because we've lived in a life
Mhm.
where we couldn't. We couldn't. We talked a little bit at the beginning, like, we can't just be crying about anything around mom and dad. We can't just,
Mhm.
I don't know if you grew up in a household, but like, if I cried too much, I would get whoopings. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so like, I had
Yeah.
to be very careful about what I cried about.
Yeah.
Because if I cried too much, I'm gonna give you something more to cry about. I'm like, I'm already bawling.
Yeah.
You gonna
And
make me
it's
cry some more?
and it's definitely hard to talk about these things, especially like you would think
Mm-hmm.
that you should be able to talk to people close to you,
Mm-hmm.
family and all that, but it's really hard to talk to those people, especially depending on what type of community you come from,
Yeah.
especially within the Black community. Like, I remember when I got diagnosed with anxiety, I never forget my first episode. I was um I was on the bus coming home from school,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember, like, all of a sudden feeling like I couldn't breathe, like I was gonna die,
Yeah. That's
type of
that's
breathe.
real.
And so, physically it wasn't anything wrong with me. So, um, went in even deeper and all that, and I was diagnosed with anxiety. So, like, all the different symptoms that they were talking about, I remember feeling all this stuff
Mm-hmm.
growing up, but I never knew what it was, because I know within the Black community, especially like in the 80s, I was born in the 80s, so like in the 80s and
Mm-hmm.
90s, like stuff like that wasn't really talked about like it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember, like, growing up in that time, and not as a child really being able to, like, express different feelings and stuff like
Absolutely.
that. You wasn't allowed to really express feelings and things like that. I be telling my children all the time, like, you guys are so lucky, because I try to create that space for them, even though I have two boys. I know, even though as they get older, it's
Mm.
certain things that they're not going to talk to me about
Yeah.
with them growing into young men, but I try to create that space where they can, express how they feel, because I remember how it felt like growing up, not being able to express certain
Mm-hmm.
things, sometimes feeling like your feelings wasn't valid. I told them, like, it used to be told to us, like, if we were to say, "Ooh, my back hurt," and adult would say to you, like, "What back? You ain't
Right.
got no back."
You too
So
young to have back problems.
yeah, yeah, like, you don't have no back. What you mean? What you mean your back hurt? So it's like, now I'm trying to change the narrative as
Yeah.
far as that, because you got so many children that's dying, suicide, and they going through so much, and they need that space
Yeah.
to be able to you know to be able to express certain things,
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
even though it might be a lot that they might not talk to me about, but at least they know to go talk to someone.
Somebody. And I think you're doing a good job with giving them that safe space. Like, hey, even if you can't talk to mom, like, here's some safe people that you can talk to. Because I think in parents too, like sometimes as kids we just like we put our parents on a pedestal, so like sometimes we don't want to go and talk to them. Like even when you think about like our kids losing their virginity, like my mom do think I'm a terrible person, so but creating that safe space, like tell me when you're ready, but also to like here are the adults, like please tell somebody so that we can at least help you in doing certain things and protection and doctor's appointments and stuff like that. And I think I wish more parents did that. We both talked about us working in education, and right now I just find that the relationship between like parents and their kids are just so far apart. And I thought it was bad like with us growing up because we really couldn't tell our parents anything, but now you just have like parents who are just very disassociated with their parenthood, like and I think that could be a whole nother podcast that we talk about like students and just what we see. But I think I say all that to say I think you're doing a great job at providing that safe space for your kids, even if you don't see it right now. I guarantee you in 20-30 years your kids be like, man, mom, like you really create a space for us to really turn into the young men that we are. We really like we can speak, we can say our emotions, we have no fear in being sad. Like I feel like you really created that space, and I give you kudos for that.
I know like with my mother, it was a lot of things that like with my mother, she was strict. Okay, especially with all girls. She was very strict. Like it wasn't no, especially when we got to our teenage years, it wasn't no hanging out with the neighborhood girls, hanging out in the neighborhood like that. And so many people talk about, how they went to the lock-ins at Saints and all that. I never stepped foot inside of Saints. My mama was not playing
I was a Saints girly.
I could not go to Saints. So with people talking about Saints, I just sit there like, I never had a chance to go. And like even like the Palace here, people talking about Palace locking. The only time I could go to the Palace was on gospel night.
Okay, like, Sunday night,
skating to Kirk Franklin. That was the only.
I love it.
There was the only time that I was allowed.
That's a throwback.
That I was allowed to go gospel night. Now these kids probably don't even know about gospel night now. But that was the only time that I could go. Like people laugh when I say my mama was strict down to the underwear. Like
absolutely,
literally like underwear shopping. You go try to reach for a black bra, slap your. What you reaching for that black bra for? Who you trying to be sexy for? Go get you one of them peach and taupe and them ivory bras, them old lady bras. They go get you one of those. Like she wasn't playing about that. Like who you trying to look grown for? But I've told her and I tell my children this too. Like now looking back, I understand why she did what she did. I'm appreciative about about what she did. It showed that she cared. It showed that she wanted us to carry ourselves
a certain way.
In a certain way, because now it just seems like some of these parents just don't care. I've seen it in some of these middle schools, the way these girls dress in middle school is like it's just overwhelming. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Woo. All right.
My mama would flip if she right now.
Yeah, things have definitely changed, and I think like that's definitely like a conversation that I don't know who needs to have it, to be honest. But I feel like we like just talking about the transformation of like what school and parenthood and family dynamics look like now, because they definitely look completely different. So I recently I went to like it was a Black History program at a school, and I remember like looking at some of the dances, and my friend went with me. She's probably about you said you're 41?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's 41 too. So I went with her and I was like, am I tripping? And she was like, what are you asking? I'm like, these dances.
Yeah.
like these dances. Am I tripping? And so she was like, I've had to learn. I'm a little bit older. And she was like, but I think it really is the dynamics of school. Like, this is what it's evolved to. She was like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but because she's 41, she has a 2-year-old, so she just had a baby. Like, that's her first and only baby. And so she was like, I've been trying to prepare myself because obviously I'm gonna be an older mom with a younger child. And she was just like, I am having to become okay with what was not okay for me in my school is different now, and it's going to be different for my child in 10 years, because again, my child's only 2, and in 10 years I don't know what this world is going to look like. But having to understand that, like, there's a lot of transformation going on, whether it's right or wrong, we don't really know, but the fact is this is what is being allowed in schools today. And I was like, I never thought about it from that way, because I was thinking like we're really allowing these things to happen in the school. Like, we're really allowing these dances and songs and all that. And it's a conversation that needs to happen. Again, I don't know who needs to have the conversation. I tend to be quiet because I don't have kids. I'm just a person that helps other people with their kids. So I know that's a big debate too. Like, you ain't got no kids, you can't speak. So I just be quiet. I just be like, okay, that's fine. Like, I just be quiet. But yeah, so let's go ahead. That was a really good icebreaker, and you definitely broke the ice. So thank you for your vulnerability. We're gonna go ahead and hop into the topic of the day, which we will continue the conversation on grief, your dreams, and how you got through it. So we will catch you over there. All right, welcome to episode 115's topic of the day. Ronni J, thank you so much for your vulnerability. That icebreaker was so good. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So we kind of already broke into it in the icebreaker, but one of the questions I always ask my guests is, can you describe a time that you grieved and got through it? And this segment is called the Grief Beyond Death, which at Healing She Got Faith, we don't limit grief to just death. But if that's your story, that's perfectly fine. We just like to talk about in every way we can grieve. So can you think of a time that you grieved and got through it?
So 2 different times. Like I said, I was married, and my husband at the time, he left me while I was pregnant. Left, never looked back. I went through my entire pregnancy alone. Had different things that I went through with that pregnancy, where it was 3 times that when they thought that I was going to have a miscarriage.
Yeah.
Let me see. It was another time I ended up getting the H1N1 virus.
Really?
And another strain of flu at the same time.
I was gonna say, if y'all don't know what H1N1 is, that's the flu. That's like that was a big I guess epidemic, like when we were growing up, the H1N1.
So I had 2 strains of the flu. So I had 1 strain of the flu, and then I had the H1N1 virus. Which, like, the symptoms of that, like, thinking about, what the symptoms were then, and, the different symptoms of COVID, it sounds like it's similar. I never had COVID, but I'm imagining that's what it's like, because I remember going in for a regular doctor's visit. I was going in for my ultrasound, and I wasn't feeling good that day. Like, I had this cough, kept on coughing or whatever. My doctor thought that it was probably bronchitis.
Yeah.
So went home. I went to sleep. I was due to work that night. Got up, getting ready for work, and I couldn't hardly breathe. So go to I go to Barnes. I go to the Pregnancy Assessment Center, which the Pregnancy Assessment Center, that's like the ER.
Yeah.
For pregnant women. And so they swabbed me for flu and whatever else.
Yeah.
And turned out, had H1N1 virus.
Ooh.
Or whatever. And
while pregnant.
Ooh. That was not fun. I sweated a lot.
How
was
scary
tired.
is that? Like knowing that you're carrying life and knowing that like you had, because like H1N1, I'm not gonna say it was as big as COVID, but when H1N1 came out, like we went crazy. Like society was not okay when
Yeah,
H1N1 came out.
yeah, yeah. It was scary, you know, because it was some people that
Absolutely.
died from that. Um, it was a scary thing, especially a scary thing to go through alone. You know, I drove myself to the
Yeah.
hospital when I was having those symptoms
Yeah.
and all of that. Got treated for H1N1 virus, and you know, got over that, and then like a week, maybe 2 weeks later, ended up with pneumonia. So
Oh my
apparently,
god.
from the explanation of the doctor, when you get H1N1 virus, it's a possibility that you might turn around
You get
and
pneumonia.
get pneumonia. So I ended up getting pneumonia. And it's so funny because at the close to the end of my pregnancy, when I was having to go to the doctor every week as we got close to my delivery date, like my doctor went over my whole chart of everything that happened. And we just, I mean, as weird as it might sound, we laughed because
Oh,
she,
because you sometimes you gotta
cause
laugh to keep from crying.
yeah, because she was like, your pregnancy was very eventful.
Yes.
Because I was like, I was barely sick other than morning sickness. I was barely sick with my oldest son.
Yeah.
And then I got into this pregnancy. Like I had morning sickness with him too, but it was 10 times worse. I couldn't even keep my liquids down. I lost 20 pounds
While
at
pregnant.
the beginning of my pregnancy during that first trimester. But yeah, you know what? With H1N1 virus, stomach virus,
Them second
some
kids, they no limit soldiers in
oh my
every
god,
aspect.
and I think that's probably why he don't. I think that's why he barely gets sick now. Because I guess he's immune to everything. Because I had everything.
Because he did it while he was in your stomach.
when I was pregnant with him, so like I think he didn't have an ER visit. His first ER visit until last year, and it was funny because I took him to the ER. And I'm so used to like with my oldest son, you know, he's 17, so I'm used to them having like a lot of his stuff on file anyway. Where with him, they was having to ask all these questions, and I'm thinking to myself, like, why they asking all these questions? This stuff should be in there. And then I thought about it. I'm like, I never had to take him to the ER, even as an infant. I never had to take him to the ER, but I'm like, well, he might be immune to everything because I had it every single thing, you know, was dealing with. I had like really bad pelvic pain with him towards the end, and you know, my doctor was telling me like either you have to be on bed rest or light restriction or whatever, you know, light duty restriction or whatever. And I'm like, well, bed rest really isn't an option. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it was just the thought of like I really needed to sit down, but I couldn't. Like I worked all the way up to the day that I had him. I actually started going into labor with him
while at work.
At work, but
What?
I never forget. I was trying to take a nap during break, and I started having contractions. They was waking me up out of my sleep, but they wasn't like close together.
Yeah.
Contractions, so I wasn't worried about it. But at the same time, I wasn't worried about if I was going into labor there because I worked at St. Louis University, the hospital right across the street. So I was close by, and probably like later on that morning when I got from work, took a shower and went to sleep, and contractions started coming again, waking me up out of my sleep almost back to back. I was like, okay, I guess it's time.
Guess he's coming.
Yeah. I'm like, I guess he's ready. He's ready. So called my mother, had her to come pick me up. I made sure that I ate because that's the mistake that I made with my oldest child was I didn't get to eat because I remember it was my birthday when my doctor sent me in to get induced.
Really?
Yeah. What? And I was at a regular doctor's appointment, you know, prenatal appointment or whatever, and she decided to send me in. And I remember thinking to myself, when my mother was going to take me to lunch after my appointment, I was like, man, she's going to she gonna take me to IHOP. I already knew what I was getting and everything. The big steak omelet,
yes,
with the pancakes, and now she's sending me in to get induced, so I'm not gonna be able to eat anything. And that was a long labor, But with my youngest boy, I made sure I prepared. I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and eat while I wait on her to get here. But his labor was just 6 hours. So
oh my God. He did all that and he just came right out.
Oh yeah, he was ready. And so after I had him, his father wasn't in the room when I had him. And so I did text him, let him know that I was in labor and I was at the hospital. Whatever, he didn't come to the hospital. I, let him know where I was at and all that. Then after I had him, I texted him and I was like, text him a picture, telling him the baby's name and hospital stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whatever. And the response that I got was, I want a divorce and a DNA test. Oh. And I'm like, well, okay. I don't have a problem with either one. As a matter of fact, I was like, well, shoot, DNA test. I'm right here at the hospital.
You might as well do it.
Come on down. Yeah. Let's get this swab on. Oh. He never came to the hospital, but I was ready to do it. To do the test. Like, I don't have no issues. Yeah. No issues with that at all. I actually think that should be mandatory.
I think that too. Yeah.
After the baby is born, to be honest, I know a lot of women gonna be mad, but I don't care. I think that should be mandatory for that to be done.
I would do it just, even if that's the only person I've ever been with. Yeah. I always say I would just do it just to get it out the way, because my thing is, people is crazy and you don't know how people act in emotional situations. Mm-hmm. So my thing in life is, let me just always be prepared. Like, I'm team swab, I'm team pre and post nup. Like, I'm team all of that, just because my whole thing is, we can love each other, we can say all this great stuff, we can be great people, but we do not know how we are going to act when our emotions take over. So we can be the best person, like, and I'm guilty of it too. Like, I'm a very genuine person, but baby, when I'm hurt, she's crazy. She's different. Like, and that's just me being 100% honest. Like, and that's why I always say, like, I'm team whatever sounds ridiculous, just go ahead and do it, because we really don't know how people act when emotions and hurt and all that isn't involved.
And then especially with the way the laws are here, where you sign the birth certificate, and even if the baby turn out to not be yours due to DNA, it's still yours. Yeah. Like, I really don't I really don't like that at all. And then not only that, but for medical reasons, like, something might be wrong with that child, where the child, need blood or something like that, and you don't want it to be later on down the line. Now y'all got to see, they got to test the blood or organs or whatever the case, and all that, and then that's how you find out, So I was like, well, come on up to the hospital. I mean, we already here. Right. We could go ahead and get it done now. He never came to the hospital. Was trying, and the thing is, like, in that situation, because my son had to see a specialist, ear, nose, and throat doctor for the first few months or so of his life, because I can't remember the name of the condition, but pretty much, like, anytime he breathed, he don't do it anymore, but anytime he breathed, it was like a whistling sound.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And at first I thought it was asthma. I'm like, oh my God, but it turned out it wasn't that. And went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, and it was like some excess tissue over his throat or something like that, or whatever that he was possibly going to have surgery on. And thank God he didn't have to have surgery. Like, it ended up fixing itself. And all of that. But I had to take him to a specialist for that, and then having to deal with the aftermath of the marriage, going down, having to deal with that financially.
Yeah, so that was a lot of grief that you were dealing with.
Yeah.
What in that particular situation, what did grief feel like for you?
in that particular situation, I felt like I was drowning.
Yeah. Did you have any like physical symptoms?
Um, Physical symptoms. I wouldn't say I did. I know, like I said, like my drinking picked up, drinking and eating, especially when I lost my job. I was used to being up at night, and so a lot of times up at night watching TV. And I mean, what goes better with watching TV than eating and watching TV? And so it just seemed like just that fast, but like you said, like it didn't happen just that fast, but it felt like it happened that fast, where the weight came on and all that. And a lot of people had a lot to say when I gained that weight. Even people at church, when I was still going to church, you know, a lot of people had something to say about the weight gain. This one lady gonna tell me, yeah, you need to come back to church so you get in the spirit, run around the church and get some of that weight out. And I'm just looking at her like, you ain't even that small. So you need to run with me. Like, how you gonna tell me that?
What is wrong with people? They just stress me out. What is wrong with people?
Like, you about as big as I am, gonna tell me I need some run.
Oh, she said you need to run with me. Look, come on, let's do
like we need to be arm in arm running around this church in the spirit.
Okay.
Like, then gonna try to make it sound good. Talking about you need to go to church to get the spirit and run around the church and run some of that weight off. And you know, a lot of people had so much to say about the weight gain, and the whole time the weight gain came on because I was depressed.
Because there's mental, and I think like that's something we don't talk about enough. Our mental manifests into physical. And we don't talk enough about that. Like, that's why I tell people, when you go to the doctor and you know it's something wrong with you, but they can't find it, it's because that's your mental that manifested into it. Like, if you like, oh, my stomach keeps hurting, but they can't find nothing, that's stress. That's your body telling you like, hey, we're tired. If you got like a random leg pain, like your thigh won't stop hurting, that's stress. Like, that is your body talking to you and telling you. If you have weight gain or weight loss, like, because sometimes it's not always weight gain, but I know for me it is weight gain, but sometimes that's your body like, hey, we need help. I've seen it with people. We need rest. We need the right nutrition. We need you to sit down. We need you to process. Like, that's your body talking to you. Like, I went to the doctor a couple weeks ago because like I was having headaches. I felt like I was gonna pass out. I felt like I had not, like, just stuff I just hadn't dealt with, and I really didn't understand what it was going on. And he touched my back, and he was like, Lisa, it feels like a big old knot is in your back right now, like from your neck to your back. He was like, and I guarantee you what you're having is tension headaches. And he was like, I'm gonna send you to the chiropractor. And you're going next week. Like, so I have one coming up on Tuesday. He was like, that's tension. And the first thing I knew was like, I gotta quit my job. Like, like, I gotta quit my job. Like, I'm stressed out. I'm stressed out. And I did. I put in my resignation letter to my job after that doctor's appointment because I was like, I can't. He said it feels like it's a ball.
Just build up stress.
Absolutely not. I refuse. You cannot stress me out like that.
Yeah, that'll kill you.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. And like you said earlier, like, sometimes we think like, what time do I have to actually take care of this? Like, what time do I have? And so, like, you know, I did a very scary thing. Like, I put in a resignation to my job, and I don't have a backup plan, but I'm just having faith that it's just gonna work out. And I'm having faith that it's gonna be that blessing in disguise. It's gonna free up time for me to be able to get better and find something better, or the business is gonna pick up something. It's gonna come from putting me first, because I can't go back to being that stressed out about anything that is not pouring back into me. Cannot do that.
Yeah.
I know you said you had two things that you grieved. So the first one was the divorce, is that?
Yeah.
And then what's the second one?
The second one was the death of my father. He got diagnosed with cancer, with liver cancer. It was like close to the end of October of 2021. Yeah, my because I have siblings in Memphis too. My father is from Memphis, and so he was living in Memphis. And my sister hit me up, letting me know about his diagnosis and all of that. And of course, I asked questions or whatever, like what stage it's in and
Mm-hmm.
also stuff like that. So they was talking about chemo or whatever, possibly getting chemo. Um, so time went on, and like right before Thanksgiving, as a matter of fact, 2021 was the year that I moved back into my own space.
Oh, okay.
So it was like 2021, is bittersweet. You know what I'm saying? Because I hit that milestone as far as like getting back into my own space and all of that. But then I turn around and I get hit with that.
Yeah.
And so like right before Thanksgiving, my sister was like, yeah, Dad's doing really good and this and the other, whatever, whatever. So I'm thinking like everything was working, everything was fine, whatever. So I get a call that Monday after Thanksgiving, pretty much saying that things was taking a turn for the worse. It's starting to affect his kidneys. They're scared to do dialysis because it might, make things worse and all this other stuff like that. And so I was like, okay. So my plan was to get down to Memphis and, to see my father, um, to see him, talk to him, and all that. And by that time, I think he was just sedated and being, kept comfortable and all of that. But I was gonna leave that next morning, but he ended up passing away that night.
Wow.
And so it was like with that, it always bothered me that I never had a chance to get down to Memphis to see him. And not only that part of it, but it was just, how it is. Like sometimes when people die, it's certain things that go on within, within the family and stuff like that. It was some things as far as his condition that I didn't feel like my family in Memphis was really forthcoming with.
Yeah.
Because I remember June of 2021, I remember my dad, he sent me a request on Facebook to join like some Christian group or something.
Yeah.
On Facebook, and I thought that was unusual because my father wasn't a Christian.
Yeah.
All my life that I was growing up, my father was Muslim.
Okay.
And so I thought that was unusual at the time, but I didn't read a whole lot into it.
Yeah.
And then I ended up learning from one of my younger brothers that he had talked to my father back in June of 2021. And at that time, like from one family member in Memphis, I was being told that my father was in the hospital, um, in a psychiatric hospital, whatever, because he had PTSD.
Yeah.
And then I'm learning from my brother, like later on down the line, that he was in the hospital for pneumonia, and I'm thinking it could have possibly been connected to the cancer. So it's like
it's a whole bunch of unknowns.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to put everything together because I'm like, okay, it sounds like he might have had this longer than this. It wasn't something sudden. Like, why wasn't anybody really forthcoming
Paying
with
attention.
me as far as
like
as far as his his condition and all of that. And I don't know. I really didn't get any answers. So it was like, as far as me, after my father's death night, I haven't really communicated with anybody.
Even your siblings?
I mean, other than my little brother that's here in St. Louis.
Okay.
Other than that, I haven't communicated with any of my other siblings, any family in Memphis. So that was kind of like a loss within itself, kind of.
That's grief too, because
Yeah,
you lose that family connection as well, which that happens a lot in death too. Like you
yeah,
don't just lose the physical person, but then you lose the relationships that came with that, and
yeah,
that's a hard reality too, because you'd be like, dang,
yeah.
I thought we was gonna get closer after they died, but we end
Hmm.
up spreading apart. How would you say? Because I know early in the show you said he died towards the end of 2021, but then you started your journey, comedian journey, in July of 2022. Did I
Hmm.
get that day right?
Yeah.
How do you feel like the death of your father kind of helped you transition into the comedian journey, if it did?
I remember like during that time, especially when I was grieving the passing of him.
Mm,
You know, I had so many questions,
mm-hmm.
and just made me think, especially since I didn't get a chance to talk to him before he died
Mm-hmm.
and all that. Like it just it just made me wonder questions that I never even thought of. Like I just wondered, like, okay, did he feel like he did everything he was supposed to or wanted to, you know, in life, and things like that? Because a lot of times when your parents are alive, especially fathers, like you just really don't think
Mm-hmm.
to ask those type of
Yep,
questions.
absolutely.
And I know that really made me be a little more understanding of any other men in my life. Not necessarily men I'm dating, but just men,
Mm-hmm.
period. And being understanding of the fact that it might be some things that they didn't get to do that they wanted to do, because you hear so much about the sacrifices of mothers and the sacrifices of women, but you don't hear too much about the father's sacrifice. They don't really talk about it.
Yeah.
um, Even if you ask,
Yeah.
a lot of times they don't really talk about it, because it's almost as if we make it seem like they shouldn't talk about it, because that's
Yeah.
just what a man is supposed to do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So just always wonder, like, did he have any regrets? Did he
Mm-hmm.
think that he did everything that he wanted to do? And so, like, that's what kind of pushed me into going on ahead and doing that, because it was like a long time coming. I was supposed to start in 2020, but the pandemic
The
hit,
pandemic. Yep.
and all of that. And then, like, during that time, um, quite a few people died within that time. It
Absolutely.
wasn't COVID
Ooh.
related, but quite a few people died, including my father. And so, I just got to thinking, because I remember, like, back when my marriage fell apart, I
Yeah.
was thinking it's too late, it's too late, it's too late. But then now I'm seeing people that I grew up with, people I went to school with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just dying. And I ain't want it to be a thing of, like, if I was to, you know, die young,
Mm-hmm.
in whatever moment, I'll be up here regretting, not doing certain things or not at least
Yeah.
trying. So I'm like, well, it just got to the point where I'm like, well, I'm still here, so I want to be careful with how I spend my time,
Absolutely.
and get started on things that's been, that started off as thoughts, or whatever. So I went on ahead and just got started with that. That pushed me to get started with that. That way, it
Yeah.
won't be no question of, if I was to leave now, whether I did what I
You
wanted to do.
lived.
Yeah.
You lived your life.
Or had any regrets of things that I didn't do, or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I had went ahead and went in with it with the mindset, because I was 39 when I started.
Yeah.
And so just went in with the mindset of, okay, it's not too late. You still have time. You could
I love
go
that.
ahead and do this.
I love that you like keep referring back to that you know thinking it was too late, but like realizing it's not too late. Like I can go
Mm-hmm.
ahead and do that. And I think a lot of us need to hear that. Like I know we hear a lot about like under 30 success, but I really do want to hear over 40, over 50, the 60 plus, the 70 plus, like
Yeah.
hearing folks still live out their dreams. Like I love hearing like 75-year-olds going to get their high school diploma,
Yeah.
or 85-year-olds going to get that college degree, or
Mm-hmm.
a 69-year-old opening a donut shop they always wanted to open. Like, I
Yeah.
love hearing that type of stuff. It was a lady here, I met her. It was her and her mom, and they're both older. But she wrote like 17 books. And I was like, I love
Mm.
that. I love that. And her mom was her biggest supporter. I think they're like 65 and 85 or like something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom was her biggest supporter. And she's like writing and publishing these poetry books. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful. Like, she didn't let age stop her. She was a person
Mm-hmm.
that dealt with divorce and deaths of husbands, like
Yeah.
multiple, like it was multiple divorces, multiple deaths, and like she
Yeah.
didn't let that stop her, but she kept writing, she kept publishing, she kept, and there was so much grief in that, but like just kept going and kept doing it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
like in grief we need to hear that, like just because that person or that thing died and we lost them doesn't mean that we died. It
Mm-hmm.
might feel like it, like I'm not saying, it might feel like we died with him, and I think like to a degree part of us did die with them, like a part of us did
Yeah.
go with them, but we're still here. And so providing that space and giving ourselves permission to feel that, so that we can go out and
Mm-hmm.
live and go out for those dreams and go. Like, this whole building came about after my mom died. Like, I was like, I need a safe space for adults, because what me and my
Mm-hmm.
siblings went through, I don't want anybody else to ever feel what we felt, because like pretty much because we were all adults. And her death was considered a homicide. And we were supposed to be working with crime stoppers and all that. And literally, like, the state of Missouri telling us, like, you guys are adults. We don't have any resources for you outside
Mm.
of like typical therapy or like traditional grief groups. And so, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, traditional grief groups are very Christian based, and so you have to like learn about Jesus. And I'm like, some
Mm-hmm.
people just don't want to have that church aspect. This isn't to say whether I believe in God or not, what my belief is, but having that safe space. Because even when I created this space, there were a lot of people who were angry with God, who they
Mm-hmm.
can't go to a traditional grief group and say that.
Yeah.
But here you can say that. Like, you, like, if you're angry
Mm-hmm.
with God, if you believe in God, if you don't believe in God, like whatever your story is, like this is that safe
Mm-hmm.
space to be able to say that. And like with my grief groups, I focus on what is grief. What are the
Yeah.
grief policies? Like, are you a young professional? Are you a professional and you just had a very you just had a death? What do your policies say at your job? Do you only get 3 days? Do you only get 5 bereavement days throughout the year? So like I help people with that, like figure that out. Like, what are the policies surrounding your job?
Mm-hmm.
What is grief? What does grief do to your body? What's life after grief? Like, what happens when you, because like I learned this quote from one of my friends. It was like, it's okay to not be okay, but it's also okay to be okay. So
Yeah.
what happens when you are in the acceptance stage and you accept everything and you're no longer sad? Because going back to a point you made, sometimes we don't know how to live outside of our sadness, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we don't know how to live outside of our grief. So what happens when we move out of our grief? What is life
Mm-hmm.
without that? And so I think that's really, a lot of us really need, that's really important. We need to learn how to live outside of our pain once we're able to get through it
Mm-hmm.
and go for our dreams. So I think that's like, I think your story is really dope. Like, going through all the pain, and like you went, like your journey is a lot, and that timeline is a lot. But then like to be here, you said you've been doing comedy for 2 years, like that's huge for you.
Yeah.
And so like I want to give you your flowers while you're here too, because that's really good. And like the fact that you can come on a platform and be vulnerable, like your listeners, your supporters, I'm sure you shared stuff that like some of them are like, I didn't even know all of that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are in 2024 standing tall.
And that's the thing. Like I tell people all the time. Like me starting to do comedy in 2022. Um, it actually helped me.
Yeah, I bet.
Um, you know, during that time
Yeah.
because still going through that grief and all that. Like it was kind of like I guess kind of like my therapy too. Um, kind of I guess kind of a way to I don't know keep my father alive in my heart in a way
Yeah.
because he had a bit of a sense of humor.
Yeah.
When he was when he
I
was
love
alive
that.
when he was alive too. Um, so yeah, because that just helped me a lot. Like
Yeah.
helping people to laugh and all that stuff like that.
Yeah. I love that. I absolutely love that. Well, do you have any shows coming up, or do you have anything, or how can people find you, follow you, support you?
They can find me on all social media platforms. Comedian Ronni J.
Okay.
Um, I do have a show. I'm still I don't have flyers for it
Yeah.
anything, but I do have something coming up on the 25th of May, and I'm trying to remember what day in June because they just pushed that one back. But I always put it on my social media.
Okay.
I also have an event May 25th.
Okay.
It's not comedy related, but I mean it's for women. It's called Healed Girl Summer.
Ooh. Okay.
Um, I'm gonna have 3 different speakers. I'm thinking about adding on another one.
Okay.
Um, one speaker, she's a doula. And she also does Yanni steaming.
Oh yeah, we like that.
Yeah. And also have another one who has a brand and she's also a life coach.
Okay.
Another one is a spiritual advisor. Um, the purpose behind this event is pretty much for because a lot of people, I don't think it's so much as they don't want to heal, but they don't know how to get
How?
started.
Yeah.
They don't know where to start. So this is what this event is going to focus on is just how to get the ball rolling,
Yeah.
and then if after the event they want to talk to any of the speakers outside of that, then they can. But I'm having that event. It'll be 2 o'clock on May 25th at Yummy Nutrition.
Oh, I love them.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love
yeah, it's
them.
gonna be there.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, I love her.
yeah, me too.
Ah,
Me too.
I
That
love
banana
her.
pudding shake.
Yes. Oh my gosh, St. Louis is so small, but like this is like a good small. I love
Yeah,
her. Oh, that's exciting.
yeah. So
I'm gonna be there.
yeah, and so it's gonna be there because one thing I was thinking about is like how we as women a lot of times the girls' night out is like so common amongst women. Especially like if they have a breakup or something, it's
Yeah.
just so common to just go out and drink and
Yeah.
do all this stuff. And I mean that's fine and everything, but at the same time, when the drinks wear off, then
Go.
where do you go from there? Because the thing about it is like, of course, we've all experienced it where like when you're not healing and you're not healing correctly, and then you're trying to carry on, new relationships and different
Yeah.
relationships, you can't really function in those relationships because you haven't healed from the last thing.
Yeah.
The previous relationship have you looking at
The new
the
relationship.
new relationship and the new guy sideways, even though that guy didn't do it to you, but because of what the last guy did, you kind of I guess carrying that on over to to the new thing.
Yeah.
um and not just healing in relationships but just in life, because I know I've seen this post all the time on Facebook that it says, I pray that you heal from the things that you don't talk about.
Yeah,
and
that's a
i
big one.
and I think, and I don't really like that quote for the
Yeah.
simple fact that um when you're not talking about it, you kind of sweeping it under the rug.
rug.
You you up here self medicating. You putting a band-aid on a broken arm, and
Diagnosing yourself through TikTok.
yeah, like, and there's nothing. You're not going to heal from not talking about things. We all have a lot of stuff that we don't talk about, and it's poured over into our life. That's why some people function the way they do.
Man, yeah, that's real.
In their life and all that. So I just wanted to have something, with women where where it's positive and it's pushing them to if they haven't started, to start the
Oh,
healing
I like
journey.
that. Heal Girl Summer.
Yeah.
Oh, I look May
Cause
25th.
yeah, May 25th.
Okay, I'm
Because
gonna put that
healed
in the show.
girls are hot girls.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I'm gonna put that in the show notes. Yeah. Oh, I like that. So, yummies. That's so excited. That
Yeah.
just made me so happy that you said that. Okay, so you got quite a few things coming up. So I'll put everything in the show notes, and I'll of course add how you can contact comedian Ronni J. So we will end on our affirmation. So we will catch you over there. All right, welcome to episode 115, affirmation of the day. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. This has been such a great episode. Ronni has came in with some gems. She talked about how grief helps her into her comedian journey, and just giving some real life examples, and not afraid to talk about what is really happening. So thank you again for that. So, our affirmation that we are ending on is, I've discovered that I am fierce and I am who I want to be. So, it is, I've discovered that I am fierce and I am who I want to be. How do you feel about that?
Um. Yeah, I feel good about that. And not only when I think about the fierce part, I don't just think about it in the physical, but just in all aspects of it.
Yeah.
Whether it's to do with parenthood,
Mm-hmm.
comedy, career wise,
Yeah.
different things like that. Just fierce in every single way.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I saw that when I do the affirmations, I go on like Pinterest and just see like what people are putting down for affirmations. And I saw that I am fierce, and I was like, I don't think I've used like a word like that in affirmations, and I like it. And I was like reading up on your story, and I was like, I think this would be a good fit. I like it. So thank you again for that. So the affirmation is, I've discovered that I am fierce and I am who I want to be. And do you have any last minute words, advice, anything you would like to end the show with?
um, I guess the last thing that I have to say, it pretty much goes back to what I was talking about earlier, because I know I'm not the only one that feel in life, especially as you get older and things happen, and you're thinking about past dreams that you
Mm-hmm.
might have had in your younger years and all of that, and you're thinking like, I'm too old to be doing this, it's too late or anything like that. I am living proof that that it is never too late, as long as you're breathing
Mm,
and your feet are above the ground.
mm.
It is not too late to do what you want to do. All you have to do is take one step, and gotta do the rest.
Yes.
And that's
Ooh.
exactly what's happened with me. Just took that one step.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I think any of the listeners out there just need to hear it. Just give, if you need permission, just take the step. No matter what it is, take the step, ask for help, follow people
Hmm.
who you really like their journey. I was gonna say that you aspire to be like, but I don't even like that term anymore, because there will never be another you. So just go ahead and just follow people who took the chance on themselves, and Ronni J is a complete example of that. And she in St. Louis, y'all. Like, people gotta stop saying St. Louis ain't dope. Look at this. This is dope. Like,
Yeah, it's a lot of dope people, a
yeah.
lot of dope talent. I've come
Yeah.
across so many people.
Absolutely. So just stop being around small minded people. I'll say this, and then we'll catch y'all next Monday. But it's a lot of social media post that's been going around talking about how St. Louis is just a city that be hating on people. And what I have to say about that is, find your people. If
Hmm.
people ain't supporting you, them not your
Yep.
people. Just find the people that will support you. I've had to learn that, like, ever since I've been very intentional about who I'm around and where I'm at,
Mm-hmm.
my life has been so much better in St. Louis. I'm now experiencing
Mm-hmm.
so much more being in St. Louis versus being around people who don't want to go and do stuff like even for 314 day, like instead of going to a party like I normally would, I went to PBS 9 and got to
Mm-hmm.
hang out with like some dope professionals,
Yeah.
like in a very, it was a professional setting, but we still like celebrated 314 day.
Yeah.
Like, and it was a free event, y'all. Like, it was a free event. We had some really good food, some St. Louis food. Um, it was just really, it was just really dope. And so if you are constantly around people who are naysayers, just find your people. Like, them just not your people, and be okay with that.
And go outside of people that um go outside of the people that you know, because I think that's an issue with a lot of people too, when they're saying that St. Louis don't support and all that stuff like that. You have to be willing to go outside of people that because sometimes the people that you do know, they're not going to be always going to be the biggest supporters.
Yep.
A lot of you have to be okay with stepping outside of your comfort zone. Me doing comedy and even putting on my own shows, that this has been a whole lot
Yeah.
of stepping outside of my comfort zone, but it'll all work out in the end. You have to be able to step out
Yeah.
um, outside of your familiar circle.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I agree. So we dropped a whole bunch of gems on you today. So take note, follow Ronni J, support, and I will catch y'all next week. I love you, but love you the way you love the world. Bye, guys.